Hey there, welcome back to the Path to Zion podcast, where we are rediscovering the ancient way. Thank you so much for joining us back here on the program today, where we're going to talk about a heart completely His. A heart completely His being Yahweh, who is the possessor, the keeper, and possessor of our hearts in completion, in entirety, is hopefully our goal. And this morning is what spurred this verse. It brought it to mind in my head and in my heart when I was reading the writings of Josephus today, starting at the creation account. And if you're not familiar with the works of Josephus, they are basically compilations of historical writings, records from other cultures, secular, religious, historians, and just discussing different vantage points of biblical accounts, biblical records of these real-life men and real-life circumstances that we know very well, those of us who are familiar with the Bible, talking about it from a lot of times a historical perspective. And of course, it begins with the account of creation, with intriguing detail and considerations that are presented in the book. And I got to the account of the flood. And yet again, it just got my thoughts going towards this incredible man, Noah, and the work that he was called to do, the function and purpose that he fulfilled and accomplished, and the intricacies therein. And there are a lot of things leading up to this, of course, but just a couple things worth mentioning in this writings of Josephus is that Yahweh loved this man, Noah, for his righteousness. Yet he not only condemned those other men for their wickedness, but he, Yahweh, determined to destroy the whole race of mankind and to make another race that should be pure from wickedness. And, of course, then goes on to the shortening of man's years. And this man, Noah, is chosen and highlighted here in the text and, of course, in the canon as well that we're more familiar with. But what caught my attention was on the other side of the flood event in the writings of Josephus is something that is not really spelled out in the Genesis account in the canon, which is we are told, if we went through, I think it's Genesis chapter 4, I may be wrong, I may be off a few chapters, about when Noah exits the ark on the other side of the flood event. And we, of course, know that it says that, he sent out the raven, he sent out the dove, he exits the ark, he erects an altar, he creates a burnt offering and presents it to Yahweh. And, he's quite thankful to be rescued and delivered. All the animals are set free, and we know the rest of the story, and at least in small measure. But what the writings of Josephus present is a consideration. At least we have to just say, well, why not? I mean, this is just somewhat filling in some gaps that the word may not intricately, with such great detail, expound on verse by verse by verse. Because like when verse, okay, so I'm literally guessing. I don't have my Bible right in front of me right here this second, but Genesis 4:3 and Genesis 4:4 may be numbered 3 then 4, but not always are we told or explained in any way how much time passed in between what was in verse 3 and what was in verse 4. Now, I say that to say, in the records of Josephus, on the other side of the flood event, there is an amount of time that passes between the exiting the ark and the establishing of the covenant and the bow being hung in the sky. And so, without reading it and going into that and making a distraction here in the midst of talking about a heart completely His, Yahweh's, it's worth highlighting that it seems at least very plausible that Noah was nervous the first time it rained on the other side of the flood event. Because let's just say, if that is true and plausible, in the days of Noah, it had apparently never rained before upon the earth. Rains come for the very first time, and the very first time rains come is the flood event, where the entire earth is covered in the waters of judgment. And a cleansing of the entire earth, minus Noah and his family and the animals that were taken with him. And the next time it rains again could possibly be on the other side of Noah's deliverance, on just a regular middle of the week afternoon, it begins to rain. And if it's true that the covenantal bow had not been hung yet, and Yahweh's promise had not yet been made known, if it's possible, then rightly so, Noah would have been slightly nervous at the raindrops beginning to fall upon his head. Oh no, are we being judged again already? And so it even references that Noah was saying perhaps year after year, this is going to be either at least a consideration of the Creator or a necessary cleansing of the earth. And so it discusses how Noah was making burnt offerings on the behalf of mankind to beseech Yahweh to be merciful and to extend man kindness and forgiveness. And it just goes on to say that Yahweh heard the prayers of this righteous man, Noah, and responded with a covenant and hung a bow in the heavens, in the skies. And so that right there that we could just talk about, because I love to talk about these biblical records and accounts, extra biblical or otherwise, whatever we want to call them. I'm enamored at the incredible works of men like Noah. And again, time and time and time again, whether it's with kings or priests, prophets, men that we could name off that we do with regularity here. These men confess their own sin and the sin of the people equally. We have sinned. We deserve your wrath. We deserve your judgment. Father, show us mercy, not them, the bad people over there who are living in iniquity. Father, none of us deserve your mercy and your patience and your kindness. Father, please be merciful. So righteous men whose very lives demonstrated their heart's posture, their love for and trust in Yahweh. Friends, this is incredible. Men like these. Unlike so many today that believe that faith can be some invisible force or some mental posture of the mind and the will, righteous men now, biblically defined righteous men of old, real men of faith, had works to demonstrate their incredible faith. In fact, they were inseparable. We talk about that a lot here as well. Faith today is, can you believe in well, we could get sidetracked. Let's not do that. Faith in the righteous men of old, friend, looked like something. Now, 2 Chronicles chapter 16 tells us what is our primary heading for the text today. For the eyes of Yahweh roam throughout the earth, so that he may show himself strong to, or strengthen, those whose heart is completely his, or whose hearts are towards him. Now, David was a man after Yahweh's heart, and he wrote endlessly of his love for Yahweh's Torah, for his statutes, for his precepts. Moses, he left innumerable accolades of the kingdoms of men, and he willingly led millions of grumbling idolaters as he received and delivered Yahweh's Torah to his set-apart people. Abraham, time and time again, heard Father's instructions. Abraham obeyed instantly. The pattern of Abraham, the father of the faith, he heard, he obeyed. And to our main man again today, Noah, he found favor in the eyes of Yahweh. So much so that he was handpicked by the Creator to be spared, delivered, and even repopulate the entirety of the human race. All of these men had open demonstrations of their faith, evidence that their hearts were completely Yahweh's possession. Now, the cool thing about this 2 Chronicles verse is that Yahweh sees those who are set apart unto his purposes and then he strengthens and he empowers them. Okay, so let's make sure we highlight that part, because his eyes are moving about. Depending on your version, your translation, they are looking to and fro throughout the earth. Okay, I believe, according to my biblical cosmology and in the opposition of science, but if I only use the word to define what I believe is the earth and the heavens and the sky and the luminaries, I believe Father is near to his creation. I don't believe he's 4.7 billion trillion galaxies away. He's near. And why do I believe he's near? Partly, in tiny part, because his eyes are looking to and fro throughout the earth. So anybody could say, well, he could do that from, the furthest galaxy. Yes, he sure can. He can do whatever he wants, but I choose to believe, according to the biblical record alone, my Father's near to his creation. And what does he do? He wants to show himself strong too, and he wants to strengthen those whose heart is completely his or towards him. And the neat thing about that to me is, number one, he wants to cause these men, strengthen and empower these to do what they cannot do on their own. And number two, he wants to empower and strengthen them to do what few, if any, in Noah's case, others are willing to do. Right? In Noah's case, no one else, apparently, on the entirety of the earth found favor in the eyes of Yahweh but Noah. And so what did he do? He, the Father, he strengthened, he empowered Noah to do what no other man was willing to do, friend. And you know what that was? And people still don't like hearing this. Noah obeyed. Noah heard and Noah obeyed. He didn't go the ways of the nations. He was not mixed. He was literally, by definition now, set apart, holy, consecrated to Yahweh's purposes, which is why he was chosen. He was in that condition first. Now, David, he was called to accomplish great things, and he penned so many declarations of the greatness of Yahweh. Abraham was empowered to be a sojourner who fathered the people of faith. Noah was empowered after he was found willing of heart to do what literally no one else was willing to do. I want to be like these men, friend. Don't you? Lastly, when Father holds a man's heart, he also holds his gaze. He has our full attention. And thereby, Father's instruction is more easily heard and received rightly. Most of us listening to this, and even if you don't have children, you know the importance of the attention of your child. When we were new parents, as our son was a toddler, we would point at our nose. I'm doing that here in the studio, pointing at my nose. Look at Dad. Look at your daddy. Look right here. Hey, look over here, right? I want to know that I have your attention, and I know that when I have your gaze. And that's the same with the Father, I believe. Because when we are fixed upon him, he has our full attention, and thereby his instruction is more easily heard and received rightly. He will show himself strong to these ones. These have his full attention. According to the Word, we have his attention, which is incredible when our hearts are completely his. So let's be like this today. Just like Noah, seek out Father's covenantal promises. Trust them entirely. If Yahweh said it, it's done, period. Again, our verse, for the eyes of Yahweh roam throughout the earth, so that he may show himself strong to, or strengthen those whose heart is completely his, whose heart is completely towards him. May that be us today too, friend. Yahweh is surely worthy of such men. You've been listening to the Path to Zion podcast, where we're rediscovering the ancient way. Reach out anytime, won't you? Path to Zion podcast at gmail.com is the way to do it. Thank you so much for listening. Amen.